if we're going to talk stinky cheese, let's talk about the stinkiest of cheese. It comes from Colorado this week as the Kansas City Chiefs visit the Denver Broncos. Kansas City's out to 9.5 in most spots. 43.5 is the total. Stephen, what combination of factors would have to happen for you to voluntarily, with no bets, say, I'm going to watch the Denver Broncos play 3 hours of football in any given week?
It would probably involve blackmail or forced confinement, something along those lines.
That's fair. Now, you mentioned earlier a Kansas City teaser. When it was still at 8.5, I couldn't run fast enough to tease Kansas City down. And you guys have heard me say for 13 weeks that teasing down this year has not overall been a profitable strategy. We've seen Russell Wilson actually, by the numbers, play a little bit better the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it hasn't mattered at all. So if we've been trying to figure out is it Nathaniel Hackett, is it Russell Wilson? Well, it's still both, but I think the scale is tilting toward Nathaniel Hackett here right now. Kansas City at 9.5. Again, the teaser doesn't look the same way as it used to, obviously. What way do you see on this game?
Yeah, I'm okay. 9.5 is tough here because now it's a 7-point teaser to get it down through the 3, and that's a lot of juice. I think it's typically minus 140, and even some of the domestic books are charging more than that. So I think at this point it's probably a pass on Kansas City. This is a team that has been just overinflated as a favorite for most of the year and haven't covered a lot of spreads, to be quite honest with you. So I think the ship has sailed on Kansas City as a teaser leg at this point. Although, as I sit here right now, there's actually some difference here. So as of Friday morning, most of the books are at 9.5. There is a 9, and there is actually an 8.5 available at some books. So go to lines.com under the NFL tab, week 14 odds. You'll be able to see which books have which odds here. So 8.5, I might run over the bridge right now after we're done recording and get some more teasers in here on Kansas City if this 8.5 is still there. But anything more than a 6.5 point teaser to get it to 2.5, I'm not going to be interested in here. I think the Chiefs do enough here against the Broncos. The other thing we haven't talked enough about is all the injuries that the Broncos have had overall, especially on defense. And this is starting to not really be the Broncos defense that it was in the first half of the year. Don't really care what they did against the Ravens last week. That's been an offense that's been struggling for weeks now.
Last week, Brad, Kansas City against Cincinnati, it ends up being a 3-point game, but I think it's important to keep in mind with that game, it was a Travis Kelce fumble that really set up the winner for Cincinnati. I had pieces of Kansas City live at plus 6.5 and felt comfortable, for the entire game. It's not really a situation where I ever was particularly worried about them. And we saw Cincinnati get very conservative at times during that game. So all that to say, I haven't moved Kansas City from the top of my power ratings after last week. 9.5 is a huge number on the road, as Stephen mentioned. 9's 8.5 available elsewhere. I know Kansas City's defense has not been good, but do you think they're bad enough that the offense can't account for 10 points against Denver?
Well, yeah, I kind of like the under because of that point. To start with those injuries, Denver's going to have 2 backup tackles in here. They're down 3 receivers. I think Sutton's out again with Hamler and the other guys this week. So they're basically down to Jerry Jeudy and then Kendall Hinton, obviously playing quarterback for him last year. Yeah. So it's a very bare cupboard. And, even before those injuries on the offensive line, Denver's OL was 32nd in pressure percentage allowed, and the Chiefs are 7th in pressure percentage allowed. And, we know that Russell Wilson holds the ball, and you can sack him. So, especially when he doesn't have any receivers. I kind of think we just see more of what we've seen out of Denver all year long, where they're averaging like 13 points a game. I don't really see why they would suddenly get more than that here. So that does potentially push me to under 44, especially if we see the Chiefs who are just rolling out the generic playbook. They're saving the good plays. So yeah, I could only lean Chiefs to cover because of losing last week. But they're in the race for the 1 seed here. They're going to be focused. But yeah, I think under 44 is probably the best way to go.
Yeah. When we look at the Denver Broncos situation, there's absolutely nothing that I feel good about really at this point. The defense was playing well, but what Brad said makes a lot of sense because only one Denver game has gone over thus far this year. I'm not a trends player by any stretch, but that is not a trend. That is a reality of this offense inability to do anything.